Welcome to Healing Beyond the Trauma. My name is Megan Alves. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And this podcast, I want to break the stigma around mental health and have real, unfiltered conversations about healing. Some stories are going to be raw, even triggering at times, but they're real and they're honest because healing starts with honesty. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're carrying it all, you're not. Here, you're going to gain validation, practical tools, and a new perspective to move forward. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. So let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode on Mental Summit. So today, and I will always fucking say this, but I have such an amazing guest with us today. I actually, before I introduce him, I just want to let the listeners know that he is part of the reason that I started this damn podcast. It was my first time being on a podcast in his office. We're going to talk about his podcast today, but I want to mention today and introduce you to Nino Galloway. And he is a retired firefighter. He is a badass connector. Oh my gosh. If any of you know him, you know that by the end of your conversation, he's going to have somebody to connect you with. Let's see. You're a father, you're a dad, you're in the thick of all the seasons, and you are at the core of charity and finding purpose. Welcome to the podcast today, and please reintroduce yourself and anything that I might have missed about your amazing life thus far.
You forgot that I'm a disco ball repairman. I mean, there's some important shit in there, you know, like, anyway, thank you for having me. Let's just start with, I'm super proud of you. And I wish, I love how in the spirit of connecting, you end up, leveraging the universe, spiritual, however you want to call it. But we ended up sitting next to each other probably 7-8 months ago and having the conversation. And I can't even tell you how we got to the point of talking about podcast. And I was like, yeah, I actually have one, and I host my own, and then I also host another one for a Southern Nevada nonprofit. And it's a work in progress. But I learned very early, just start where you are with what you have and then evolve through your sets and reps. And that's, I think, what came in our conversation. So that's how we're here.
Yeah. And honestly, I do remember a little part of how we started on the podcast conversation is because you were like, okay, well, what are you doing? Right. Obviously, I'm a therapist, but I'm starting, a membership to help reach those that are not yet ready, or they just want to dive into additional education. And I was like, I'm going to go live. I want to do some things, but I don't really want to be in the podcast. Like, so that's literally how our conversation started. And you're like, wait, have you been on a podcast? I'm like, no, I have not. And I'm good. Thanks, Nino. Like, it's so nice to meet you, but like, I'm good. And you're like, just come on and have a conversation. We've been talking for a half hour. That's just like how a podcast goes. And here I am.
Yeah.
Less than 7 months later. So thank you for that encouragement.
I love it. I love it. And we needed the reps too, because I think there's a stigma between having conversations with professionals in your space where we almost assume that we're being judged. And I honestly believe, I do believe that my foundation is to connect people, right? But from that, each connection has a purpose. It's to learn. It's to gain awareness. It's to gain insights. Maybe not to change your opinion, but broaden your perspective. And I think we owe that to ourselves. And so when we were like with you, I was like, and I could test your fear. And shout out to Danny, because Danny finally came in 2 months ago, and I kept poking her, because once you find your magical space, your energy is there to help others. And same thing with you. Like, you adapted pretty quick. I'm super proud of you. But plus, when you're just chit chatting, I call it chopping it up. Once you're just chopping it up, there's nuggets there.
Yeah. And it was so easy. You made it so easy and welcoming on your podcast. Let's, talk a little bit about your journey and just kind of like how you've gotten into this scene, because one of the reasons that I really wanted to have this conversation, by the way, those listening, Nino and I can talk for hours. We've already been talking for a half hour. We were supposed to hit record. And, one of the things that I guess, fascinates me and that I really enjoy about you, especially as I work in the mental health space, is that as a retired firefighter, how many years were you on the
I,
fire department?
I did 29 years for North Las Vegas Fire Department.
Oh, yes. And that's my hometown. Like I grew up in North Las Vegas.
Northtown.
I learned how to run real fast because my mouth ran real fast too. So,
Uh-huh.
so as 29 years in the fire department, I really want to understand, and I want the listeners to understand how you got to this point to continue to drive in the direction that you're going after
Mm,
living a life, especially as a firefighter in Northtown. If anybody doesn't know Northtown, Las Vegas, it's definitely, I mean, it's the thick of Vegas. I love Northtown. I mean, I was born and raised
mhm,
there, but it develops some thick skin.
mhm.
And so fill us in a little bit. I know I asked like 10 questions in one, but I
Yeah,
think you got the gist.
I was tracking you.
Awesome.
One shout out to my Northtown peeps.
Yeah.
At the time of this recording, some of my boys rolled a fire engine a couple days ago, and I'm glad that they're healing and okay. Um,
Yes.
uh, I got during my testing process back in the early 90s. You're testing to get on a fire department. A lot of times, it's not a matter of where. You just got to put your apps in and go through the process. I got hired off the third test I ever did, and that was with North Las Vegas. And at the time in 1993, there was 58 members and 3 stations. And then 29 years later, there was, 175 members and 8 stations. And since then, I've been retired 3 years now. They've grown another station and probably another 80 people. So they're growing pretty fast. That's happening all across the valley in Southern Nevada.
Yeah, because
Um,
we're growing fast in
We are.
Nevada.
We're
Yeah.
we're growing pretty fast. I think we're supposed to hit next 10 years 3 million in Southern Nevada. So, but um I've always been a curious individual. Some of that's good, some of that's bad. But in the space of service to others, I grew up that way. My family was very religious. We did a lot of volunteering every week. It was a staple. And so as an adult, I was fortunate in my career to get introduced to an opportunity to create a charity. And it served so many um, lessons, um, more good than bad, but the result of serving people became therapy, right?
Hmm.
And from that, as I just stepped down from that role. We were part of that for 20 years. Let's see, I was a board member for 21 years. And the roller coaster ride was amazing. And we got to create things based on not knowing. We just learned to take the risk. And we learned that if you took the action and you would figure the rest out. And if you tried something and you really just didn't like the way it made you feel and it didn't give the results you wanted, you just wouldn't do it again. But if you liked it and you knew you can improve on it, then you owe it to yourself to see it through and build on it and make it better. And for those of you in Vegas, the example I'll give you is in 2002, when we were just coming up with the concept, the founder, the guy that brought the idea and put together the team said, "Hey, I want to collect toys for kids and give it to kids." And everyone's like, okay, not knowing what to do. We went to Walmart. Matter of fact, it's a Walmart on the south part of town, Eastern and Serene. And we asked them if we could park a fire truck out there. And for 2 weeks, we collected toys and then we gave them the kids. 800 kids received toys.
And that was under the was that under Burn Foundation?
The
Yeah.
Burn Foundation.
Okay.
And so that was 800 kids. And then literally the legacy of that through all the trials and tribulations, the the Burn Foundation's team in 2024, which is last year, got toys to 30,000 kids.
It's
And
amazing.
right, the relatability is if you live in Southern Nevada and you've gone during the holiday seasons to see a fire truck in front of a Walmart, that's us. And
Mm.
that's through trials and tribulations. And so that was also a key anchor of if it's important enough, see it through. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like in a nutshell of what inspired me. And then when I knew I was going to retire, it wasn't retired to do what everybody else was doing, which was, hey, retire and sit on your laurels. No, if you're not growing, you're dying. And the dying starts here. It starts with your energy. It starts with um, you putting challenges in front of yourself so that you can hustle for your best life, so that you can
Yeah.
stack your own moments and overcome. I have a mentor that taught me, said, you have to overcome to become. Well, in this case, it's about overcoming the identity that I'm only just a firefighter.
Right. And you just like that's something so important that you just said, only just a firefighter. Like
Correct.
holy shit, you served for 29 years, saw the thick of the thick. I mean, I've heard like probably 0.02% of your stories, and I mean, you've got some stories.
Uh-huh.
And so when you think about the identity of just being a firefighter, the fact of that identity is so ingrained and so strong.
For sure. Yeah. Because there's a lot, it's not a typical job. It's a community culture. Um, the, I'll give you an example. In most workplaces, you go do your time, you collect a paycheck, and you meet the outcomes that are outlined by your whoever's in charge, right?
Yeah, goals, objectives,
Right.
yeah, projects.
In my space, I worked with a couple of guys so long that it's like we don't shake hands, we hug. Those guys have told me that they love me and I love them because we've been through the shit. That's just a fact, right?
Right.
And most people can't comprehend that, right? That it's a legacy position. And not every fire department, not every fire community is the same.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate enough to actually embrace that with the people we were with. And I call it, we were the United Nations. We were definitely not an HR friendly environment because you had to learn how to get thick skin. There was banter all the time. But in the flip of a switch, you went from disagreeing to being one team. And that is priceless.
Oh my gosh, if only we could like say that louder, right? Like you
Yes.
can disagree and then at a flip of a switch, y'all were able to join back in on a union and you
Yeah.
know, ignite whatever is needed to take care of those next
Mhm.
steps in life. Because that is real life, right? Like you guys
Yeah.
are in the thick of people's very worst days, biggest crisis
A hundred
days.
percent.
So give me an example. I mean, we're in, this recording is 2025, July of 2025. We are in the thick of not being able to agree to disagree. So, yeah, I mean, you and I have noticed on social media. I mean, if you're one direction or another direction, like there's so many people that we can't come together anymore. And so give us an example of how thick that is and how you guys were able in the thick of disagreeing to flip that switch and show up
Sure.
for life happening.
Sure. Well, let me preface this.
Yeah.
Can I share? I have a great journey story of that, but then I also want to challenge our all of you listening
Yeah.
to really the power of our control, the power of our energy we have after that. And so, to your point, we are in a very polarizing time. I think my personal opinion is that's probably a strategy, divisiveness because of disagreements. And we don't have to like each other, but we have to learn how to respect each other. And some of that respecting is agreeing to disagree. And for me, I call them sentinel events. I don't know where I heard it. I couldn't explain it. I tried to look it up for the meeting, and it's not there. But a sentinel to event to me is when you went on a call and a response, and it's one that till the day you die, you're going to remember what that call was like and the details and the roles you played, right? It's ingrained in your brain. And so, 2021, April 13th, to be exact, I was working overtime in my same firehouse, so Cary Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard, and I was having a very interesting disagreement with the battalion chief there. We were known to disagree to the point where if he said that sky was blue, I was going to tell him it was cloudy with chance of rain just to piss him off, right? And not out of hate, it's just I like to debate with him. I liked disagreeing with him. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see if I disagree with you, I'm going to ask you to explain yourself so I understand what you're missing. What am I missing for you to think what you think, right? So him and I are going through that. And it was dinner time, and we were loud enough that I call them the youngins. Anyone who had less than 20 years on, the youngins are nowhere in our space. They left us alone because we're yelling, right? And I mean, to the point where we're calling each other names, and but not hate. It's just that's the kitchen table in the firehouse. And so um, the tones drop for a house fire, and under 10 minutes later, it was actually under 9 minutes later, we were coming out of a house with a 4-year-old child. And in that time frame, anything that we were arguing about, I couldn't even tell you what the actual topic was. But there was communication that happened that anchored the power of the professional firefighters, meaning we're going to the worst call that you can see, which is a kid who's at risk of dying, which in this case he did.
Mm.
We did everything. Good communications. We were efficient in our speed to get there. We were efficient to get to the door. I want to say, and I'd have to fact check this, but I think the average rescue time for a human by fire service is somewhere about 12 to 13 minutes from dispatch to having them evacuated from the building. We had this kid out from dispatch to out in under 9 minutes. So we were moving. And as soon as we came out, his message to me was not, hey, you're a jerk, right? Or an asshole. He was like, are you okay? Do you need anything?
Yeah.
That makes sense. And
Yeah.
so to me, that was a great example of how you can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, our priority is to be our best self, serve our community, serve our families, and be the best example of what we can do within our control. And I think we've lost that as a society. And so as you read stuff, as you look through stuff, my challenge to you is the post going to make you better? Is
Mm.
this action going to make your community better? Do you have the ability to disrupt in a positive manner with the path you're doing? And if not, then evaluate it. Maybe it's
Yeah,
time to pivot.
and I think, yeah, and you often use the word pivot, right? Like, can we pivot when we're in the thick of a season,
For
when we're
sure.
agreeing to disagree? I think that that's oftentimes a really hard thing because you just said something really important. Can you evaluate yourself enough to say, I'm not showing up in the capacity that is serving myself, my community, the people around me, the greater good, right? Like that takes a lot
Mhm.
of reflection and ability to do. And I
Agreed.
see it, you and I both see it often
Mhm.
that's a difficult tool. But I will say, for those of you listening, it is a skill that you can gain and learn. So this challenge is such a beautiful part of the conversation that I'm going to make sure to highlight
Mhm.
that, challenge yourself,
Yeah.
start to get to know yourself, and so on that note, I have like three questions for you. So hold out on the other two. And ask five and one. But when you think about, you and I have talked about trauma and we talk about trauma a lot on this podcast. When you walk out of that, we know that that changes your brain pattern in that moment and we know that there's trauma that comes from that. So how would you and what would you give those listening, knowing that we have small t traumas and those are some big T traumas, but it affects the brain very similarly? So, as a firefighter, what would you tell those that are like, I know as I start to evaluate that I need support? How did you manage that? And what tools would you give?
That's a good question. I think in this reinvention of my life post fire department, I'm more curious and passionate on learning uh, the hows of how to handle things different. For me, it would show up in my PTS or PTSD, if you call it that. Um, I think it showed up with shortness, a little bit of anger, and I think there's some commonalities with firefighters or first responders in general that we do, and none of us are void of it. So I'm intrigued about where do we go to outlet some stuff, and I brought this up to other people in questions like, hey, what do you do, or what did you do to offset it? Because the trauma is absorbed, the energy of the trauma is absorbed differently, and it's released differently from others.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I found out. And so my question to all the people in this profession is, I felt that because I was always busy in the community, that that was my outlet and release. And I think that's a portion of it, but it's not all of it, right? I think some of that is mindset, always being eager to learn on how to pursue my best life has let me learn habits and goals. I mean, my podcast is a goal. It's a habit that we're building. And guess what? I don't even think it's that very good. I'm just doing sets and reps, and I'm committed to the evolution because the outcome is sharing stories and stacking moments. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Well, that's how
Yeah.
I handled the fire service as well. I couldn't control what happened before I got to the scene, but I can control my skill set and the value to that person with the wisdom that if you go to work and every day off Cary Avenue, someone was dying. In a
Yeah,
2-day shoot,
absolutely.
someone was stabbed or shot, right? So if the average human sees 4 to 6 traumas in their lifetime, and we could go, well, shit, I've seen that in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where
Which
is
is
that
very hard
energy
on the brain. Yeah.
going, right? Where is that energy going, and how do you do it? And I think I was fortunate in certain areas to have some wins, but now I'm giving it effort by having relationships and conversations with you, because it's not just sitting down with a therapist. It's about sitting down with people that have that, for me, the same forward growth mindset. So it's aligning
Yeah.
yourself with people that are going in the same direction, not the same topic, but the same direction. Like they're in pursuit of their best.
Yeah, and I mean that's always been something that in our conversations that I just love about you, and I think I want to highlight what you said is one of the areas that you have often mentioned to me, and tell me if I get it wrong, is that you have always focused on something bigger. You've always focused on growth. You've always focused on, I mean, I think when I was on your podcast, what was it, the Ed Milet, The Power of One More, like
Uh-huh.
you gave me that book, which really like
Yep.
to me, like that really embodies like a lot of your mindset power, like through PTSD and through these lived experiences, keeping that mindset. Yes, there's resiliency in there. We have all of this stuff that we could say, but when you keep the mindset on the why, or just can I go just a little bit further? Can I test myself just a little bit more? And you're mentioning, yes, some of that was, I guess we can title it, we could put it in a box like healthy. Some of it was not so healthy on the way that you were going about handling those experiences. But then you got curious and okay, how can I handle this better? Like some of those warning signs was like, I'm anger, I'm irritable. Like that just like seems like, if we were to put it in a stigma, like that's like male hormones. Okay, no, like it was a little bit bigger than that. I didn't like how it was showing up. So
Uh-huh.
I've got to figure out, and you said something really important here too, is that it's not just therapy. And that's something that I'm such a huge, even as a licensed clinical social worker who's dedicated most of my life to learning about social work and therapy and helping people show up through trauma and heal through trauma, is that it's not just therapy. That what you talk about oftentimes on the podcast, in conversations, where you show up and how you show up in serving others is really about continuous growth. You
Correct.
found your why in so many areas. And going back to what you said earlier is like, if you feel it and you enjoy showing up in those charities, then you keep going. And if you're not feeling it, then you pivot. And I think that that is a very important strength. And oftentimes we get so afraid to step in and out of that comfort zone. So, a few of those that you mentioned that I just want to highlight on. And do you feel like I captured?
You did. If I can elaborate on that in 60 seconds or less. Uh, Curiosity leads to passion, passion leads to purpose. All of that in a growth mindset becomes your it, right? I didn't make that
Mm,
up. I took it from somebody, and I always go get after it. Identify what your it is. And from that it, be committed to getting uncomfortable and doing those sets and reps to pursue of that it. That uncomfortable in those sets and reps becomes moments that you are stacking. And if it starts to crumble, then you have to pivot to reset what it is that you're going for. And I don't take credit for any of that. I've just taken all of that information and absorbed it into a model that works for me. And that's within my control. And now, for everyone that's listening, life is going to life. So
mm.
now it's your choice to make a decision to life on your own choices, your own decisions, your own command of your energy.
Yeah. And as you said, check, as we kind of wrap this up, is that you can check in on you've got to have that understanding of like what those warning signs, how you're not showing up. And then self-development is a big one. You stand really dedicated in your self-development. So can we highlight that for a few minutes on how you've taken those steps to get curious and to gain some of the knowledge?
Ugh. So first off, I'm really lazy. I'm a
Which most people would be like,
procrastinator.
bullshit, why are you
I'm a
doing all this?
procrastinator.
Okay, okay.
I'm a person who um can be driven by fear,
Mm.
right? The reality is I'm perfectly imperfect.
Yeah,
And
all of us
so
are.
correct. And so what I've done is had to create opportunities and lanes that work for me to make sure I reduce the regret that I have, right?
Mm.
So an example would be I love audiobooks. I love podcasts. I listen to them every day. But I went through a long period of time where I didn't like to read, yet the mental absorption of reading is more powerful, right? So I'm committed to reading every morning, right? So I've developed a morning routine that puts me sitting in a place doing some journal, right? I start each day with gratitude. Why? Because I can fill it with tons of negative shit all throughout the day. So at least start with, you learn to like be grateful. So I just simply write a few things that I'm grateful for, right?
Yeah.
And then I set up, what am I going to do for my basics? I'm really lazy. So I have to force myself to do my push ups, my squats, my rucking, the working out part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then from that, my priorities in this reinvention of me post fire department is to create new habits through those connections that support the entities and charities and spaces that I serve. Well, that's habit forming that has to be different than the paramilitary life I had for 3 decades. And so when I say like what that is, it's so important because you can literally go find tons of negativity. Just open your phone, pick an app. They're dominated about what's wrong with life. Well, I can easily fall in that because based on my my core ability to be lazy and procrastinate, I could easily fall into that window, but I know I would regret that over the long term. So the effort on a daily basis, the effort to improve better, the effort to meet and connect people, it it's what's putting me in a constant pivot, which is why it's an anchor term for me.
I love that. And you just hit on so much science, actually. I mean, there is. some of us actually want to grow because we can see the end goal,
Hmm.
which is really about human evolution. Like we really haven't had this huge vision. Brain
Right.
has had a really hard time to actually see that far in the future, because if you think about lifespans, I mean, people weren't living till 100, right? It was
Right.
hard for our brain to grab onto. And so you mentioned, yeah, but I can set these goals, but really if I can focus on my morning, hit gratitude. Oftentimes I hear people say, I'll have gratitude when I complete this goal, or I'll have, y'all missing the point. Nino, you really just highlighted for us how important it is to just start every day with that gratitude, because now you get to highlight that gratitude the rest of your day.
Hmm.
You don't have to have that gratitude or sense of accomplishment when you finish something, but as you are just making every day. And I think you often mention, what do you call it? Like stacking moments, right?
Hmm.
And so if you can think about that, if you highlight all the negative, you're going to be stacking some pretty shitty moments.
That's exactly right. Right. Well, and not only that, for stacking moments, it's all of those. Next month, I'm going to get another tattoo. I have one right now, just one, and it's the
And it
word
says,
grit. It's my mantra, right? But grit stands for gratitude, resourcefulness, intention, and tenacity.
yeah.
All of those have to be balanced too. So my tenacity has to be for my habits and goals,
Mm.
but then I have to really use caution in my energy when I'm across people, because I often get misconstrued as being obnoxious, right? Or aggressive, which based on their perspective is true, right?
Sure.
Intention. My intention is to stir the pot, disrupt shit, because that's within my power to do. The resourceful is every time I've been in a hard bind, as long as you take a step back and you go, there's got to be a different way. There's a different direction. There's a pivot in there that's going to make this work. It has never let me down. And you know why? Because I have a barrier that has seen people's lives get taken away from them without them living to their full potential. So
Mm.
ultimately, that's a little bit of a carrot to go with. If
Yeah.
not now, when, right? If not you, who, right? Those are all information you get from reading. And so, and then I know I capitalized a lot, but that's like, there's a lot of passion in all of this. And so I'll finish with this. Next month, I'm just getting the end symbol added. So I
Mm.
want people to go, listen, life is gonna life, but now it's in your control, and go do something. Replace the word and
Right.
from or. Like reframe all of that so that you can go be your best life and live life on your terms.
Yes, I love that. I've always said, like, talking with Nino at the end of it is like, you should get a book or a workbook or a journal, something that has all your freaking acronyms, because you've got some good ones, homie. Like, there's some good ones out there. And so I hope those of you that are listening really understand, as Nino has lived life in a space that continued to throw life in his face, and he's seen the worst of people's days, he's seen the end of people's days. Trauma's going to hit on different levels,
Right.
and the power of your why and continuing to want to grow, and the in the and right, life is going to keep happening, and I'm going to go do this, and taking control and accountability for yourself. How, as I know I'm keeping us a little bit longer, but I want to end this on something that I think is valuable, is that how long have you been married, and what was the intention that you put into your marriage, especially as somebody that showed up as a first responder for so long?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if I can give you an answer other than that lady's super patient. Uh, uh, if I could describe, I'm a true extrovert. She's an introvert.
The yang to the
I'm like
yang.
the Tasmanian devil. Like everyone in my house likes to get up and mosey. It takes them a while to kind of get into enacting their energy, from my mother-in-law to my wife to my son. We're talking a 60-minute wake up. I'm out the door in 9 minutes. I get up before sunlight. I'm out, like my clothes are set, brush my teeth, throw some deodorant on, put some shorts and shirts on, and I'm gone and I'm at the coffee shop and I'm gone for 2 or 3 hours. Then I come back and my wife's up. And so that's just one piece of what it's like. And so I don't
Yeah.
know if I had an intention other than I have someone that understands my craziness. I love dark humor. I love if they could remake Blazing Saddles and House Party and Friday, like that's my type of jam. I'm not going to watch. I just somebody asked, hey, did you watch that movie Sinners? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I was just with my brothers the other day and we watched Friday After Next, right? And we laughed the whole time. Um, some of my conversations are super intellectual and thought provoking. And then literally, if my kid farts, I'm done for 3 minutes. It's, but that's life. So my
Yeah.
wife has to manage all of that in between.
Yes. And so, you know, if you were to give, as we end this podcast, if you were to give advice and make it blanket, right? Make it to your rookies that are like getting into this field of firefighting, to your retired firefighters who aren't sure how to let go of that
Mm,
identity and they're starting to, lose themselves in that retirement. What would be that piece of advice for them?
um,
And as you think about that, it's also those that have gone through trauma, right? And you're trying to find
yeah.
that new identity after trauma.
I think one of the greatest things you can do is develop a life that's on your own terms.
Mm,
And my experience through the fire service was amazing. All the trauma that was there is part of the balance beam of what it was like to live with my boys, right? And my boys could have been a Mormon to a Muslim. It
yeah,
could have been black to Puerto Rican to redneck, right? To somebody who's never hung out with black people before because there was no black people where he came from. That's a
yeah,
reality.
right.
And the greatest thing you can do in the fire service is embrace the kitchen table. It's the
Mm,
most universal place you have. Now, that's for all the young ones. Like, that's where the stories are told. That's where you get the deep part of what it's like in the fire service. Now, for those of you who are retiring and now your identity's in question,
yeah,
it's real, it, the experiences you have just set a foundation that most people will not understand. So now it's your turn to get curious in other areas that allow you to become that student, knowing that you have that foundational knowledge that you got in the fire service. And that's a key to me because you always hear, well, people always heard, like they always reference to their own stories of what they saw. I'm guilty of it too, right? But for me, moving forward, it's now about going to create new stories. Those moments, the good, the bad, the indifferent stories, those moments that I'm stacking, it's to acquire new stories. And if you're in pursuit of your best, you're creating new stories. And we all have that power within ourselves to do that.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today. For those of you listening, please rewind, take some notes, go big, go bold, and we hope to see you back soon.
See y'all later.
Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you gained what you needed to hear today. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about the strength of moving forward. If today's episode resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone you love, because when we share with love, we help to break the stigma together. If you want to connect with me and learn more about what we're doing over at Mental Summit to break these stigmas, please connect with me over at mymentalsummit.com. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep going together, and remember you're not alone in this.